Hey guys, Stacy here, We Grow Again. Just a little update. I did a composting video for you about a week ago, and I just want to explain some things because, composting can be a science. Planting in itself is a science. So I just wanted to go over that, when you're adding your brown material, which are your, whoa, there's a froggy. Look at him. When you're adding your brown material, like your leaves, you want to add nitrogen. So your brown material is going to be your carbon, which you should have carbon and nitrogen. Now, grass clippings are considered nitrogen because they're green. Any leaves you pluck are considered nitrogen. You can crumble them up, cut them up. Now, the smaller you break this down, the faster your compost pile is going to break down. So you can see I have a really chunky compost pile. I have to get in here. You can see they're starting to break down. They're starting to get crispy. They're starting to turn black. And that's good. That means you're doing good. Everything's breaking down. You can see the sticks starting to turn black. And look at that. Look how easy that breaks apart. It's just breaking down to nothing, guys. You want to keep your compost pile moist, but not sopping wet. Now, you want to just keep the top moist and make sure, let me see, you have drainage on the bottom. We drilled some holes on the bottom. It's like a little grit. And I thought there was drainage, but my husband said, you better check that because I don't know if you have the right drainage in there. So he drilled a couple of more holes for me in here. And this is doing great. It's just going to be sitting here for a couple months. I mean, your compost pile, when you add stuff. Now, I first started this. I haven't really added anything to it, but some calcium that I boiled my eggs in. So once I boiled my eggshells in that pot, I took that water. Once it cooled down, and I poured it in here because the calcium that comes off of them eggshells, when you're boiling them, they'll do really good in here. It'll add calcium to your compost pile. You can cut up banana peels in here. That's fine. Now, I don't use meat. Any meat, nothing off my table that's cooked. I don't use any cooked, vegetables or anything like that. It's just my preference. I used raw peels from, bananas, carrots, zucchini, cucumbers, just stuff like that, rotten tomatoes. I'll cut them up and I'll throw them in here too. If you have seeds, you'll start growing tomatoes out of here like I did. I actually got a plant out of it, which was pretty cool. I planted it up over there in my pot. So you can use compost the natural way, which is this way. And when you add your nitrogen, so say I have my grass clippings and I have a bunch of leaves here that I need to pick up, I'm going to add a handful of them grass clippings to 3 handfuls of leaves, your brown material. So you want 1 handful of nitrogen to 3 handfuls of your carbon, which is your brown paper bags. Make sure you're not using newspaper. A lot of people do because they say it doesn't affect the ink in there. I just prefer not to. I recycle everything in my house, so or I find a repurpose for it. So I don't have to worry about wasting my newspaper. I just, give it to the garbage guys to repurpose that way. I don't put it in my compost because of the ink in there. Meat, like I said, I don't use meat. And you can use meat, guys. You just got to really do your research and make sure you don't have pesky bugs and animals around you. We have coyotes here. We have rabbits. We have possums. We have raccoons. We have every kind of bug you can imagine in the garden. Every kind of animal you can imagine that's out there. So I have to be so careful with what I'm putting in my compost pile. Because if I put meat in here, even them peels, I'm going to be attracting animals. So if I do add peels, now if you have a handful of carrot peels or something like that, just your kitchen scraps, you want to put a handful of kitchen scraps all the way down at the bottom of your compost pile so it breaks down and that food smells covered. So you want to dig to the bottom of your compost pile, make sure you have a little bit of this compost on the bottom, and then you want to put your food scraps and then pile your compost on top of that. This way that smells covered from the animals and it really helps to break down the food. Now, anytime you're adding in here, make sure I told you, this is very chunky. So make sure it's broken up. Get in there. I'm going to get in here today and break up my little twigs that I got. So they just break down a lot faster. I'm going to kind of get in here. You can see these are already breaking down, changing color. That brown color is what you want. You can see this light brown didn't break down yet, and that dark brown's already breaking down. Keep it moist, but not sopping wet. You don't want this soaked. This is perfect. You want to aerate it. Now, you can sift through your compost pile every few days if you want, but I only tend to it every week. Every week is fine. Every 2 weeks if you forget about it or you're busy. Like I get around here, I have like ADD. I get on one project and then I go on to another, and then by the end of the day I have 17 different projects that aren't completed but are halfway done. So I'm trying to, stick with what I know, and just, I get the results doing it this way, the same as the scientific way. I have to dumbify everything down to my level. So I read it, I do the research, I understand it, I look things up that I don't understand, and then I utilize it in my garden. Now, once this breaks down in a few months, it's going to take them a few months to break down. Keep it out of the rain, guys, by the way. See what I mean with ADD? Put, I just cover it. What I do is I cover it with this little, I don't know, it's just like a kid's play mat. We had a bunch of them that we did from a clean out. We did a house clean out. What I do so the rain doesn't get on it or nothing, I just keep it on top. Now you can see that there's still air in there. Now I do leave it open like this so the air can escape, because them kitchen scraps, or depending on what you're putting in there, compost piles release gases. So you can either leave the lid off or put it on. It's totally up to you. But just remember, you have to put your even ratio. So if you're putting eggshells, you can just put the eggshells. You don't have to add anything. I don't have to. It's calcium, it's not nitrogen. You don't want too much nitrogen in your compost, because that's just going to way overdo it. So you want to add either a handful of grass clippings or a handful of kitchen scraps to your 3 handfuls of brown material, your brown paper bags and your leaves. And that's it, guys. I either do kitchen scraps or grass clippings. I don't do both at one time. And then I add to that maybe every week to every 2 weeks. And once that breaks down, you're just going to pile it on top as a fresh compost topper. Any soil that I want to reuse, like say these were big plants and they're done and I'm cutting them down, I'd put this soil that I reuse in my compost pile so I don't waste it, and it'll just put soil in there and make it break down and just become a really rich, it'll put the nutrients back in the soil that this plant sucked out throughout the whole growing season. And that's why I reuse the soil. But that's why most people don't reuse their soil, because it is a lot of work getting the nutrients back into your soil for that plant, reusing it. But if you put it in your compost pile, all them nitrogen you're adding, the potassium from your bananas, the nitrogen, the carbon, all that's going to break down with this soil, and it's going to give you a nice compost soil so you can top off your garden with it. Now at this stage is when I top off. I either use a potting soil that I have, a really rich one. It's a jungle growth mixture with Coco Loco. The jungle growth has it's just a professional mix that master gardeners use. I found it, and it has a little bit of food in it, which is non-organic, but it has a bunch of other stuff in it too. And there's no additives in there. So, I won't grow weeds in it if I watered that soil. And then this Coco Loco has natural bacillus in it, which is beneficial bacteria. It's awesome for your plants. It's something your plants need throughout their whole growing season, I found. Bacillus is just a really beneficial bacteria in keeping your plant healthy and getting rid of bugs. What they use in thuricide spray, which is Bacillus thuricide spray. It's called BT spray. It's for caterpillars. It's a deterrent. It's a pesticide. So this has that in it, and this has Norwegian earthworm castings in it, coconut coir, which is great for your plants. There's tons of other stuff in here, guys. I can name off Norwegian kelp meals in here. So this I use together as a compost topper while I'm waiting for my compost to break down. You can just mix these two together like I did and just top off your plants at this first sign of flowering stage. These are way past flowering. They're already matured cucumbers we've been picking. I've got at least I'd say 12 cucumbers so far these past 2 weeks off of these 2 plants and the ones I have in there, off of all of these, and that's about 6 plants, I think it is. And you can see I just topped off with that potting soil on the base of the plants and in my containers, and it's going to give them plants, excuse me, them nutrients they need to grow at this stage. These are carrots. They're getting really big, and you can see I topped off with my potting soil mixture because I really didn't have any compost that was ready. So I just used my potting soil with that, it's a really organic, rich matter potting soil. That's what you want when you're picking it, and that's why I love my Coco Loco so much. I've been using it for about 6 years now, 7 years almost, and it just works really good to keep my plants healthy and give them what they need. You should definitely be topping your plants off your containers and in the ground at the first sign of flowering, or when they're halfway through their maturity stage. Till next time, I hope that helps you to keep your garden healthy with some compost. Bye-bye.